Hello, hello. Welcome once again to another edition of Quoth Raven Lewis Bright Raven. It is Saturday, May 21st, 2022, and this is Anime Night, and we're going to be talking about the classic 70s series Science Ninja Team GATCHAMAN, also known as Battle of the Planets, for those of you who live in America and never saw the original version. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about how I came across the series. I came across Battle of the Planets in 1977 or 78 when it first aired in America. It was Americanized by Sandy Frank Productions, and completely different story than what we're actually going to be reviewing tonight. But we're going to get into that in a little bit. I liked the series back then, mostly because of the dynamics of the characters. I'm not really sure if my speaker is up right, so let me go ahead and put that up there for you, maybe. That'll help. Hopefully you guys can hear me better. I don't know. But anyway, hold on a second. There we go. All right. There we go. So anyway, I was about 5 or 6 when that show came out in America, and I watched it probably a good year and a half. But I never really got to see the original Japanese version, and I just happened to be in my local library last week, and I came across the whole 5 DVD box set, which has 105 episodes. So I was like, oh, I got to see this, see what the actual difference is, because I've been told many times that the original GATCHAMAN is nothing like Battle of the Planets, and that it was a lot more violent, a lot more adult, more mature themes going on. And I was like, okay, let me check this out. So let's talk about it. GATCHAMAN Part 1, we're going to be talking about the first 20 episodes. It originally aired in Japan in 1972. It was called GATCHAMAN, or aka Science Ninja Team GATCHAMAN in Japan, also known as Battle of the Planets here in America. It's created by Tatsuo Yoshida, directed by Hisayuki Toriumi most of the time, produced by Ippei Kori, written by Jinzo Toriumi, production company by Tatsunoko Productions, which was later licensed out to ADV Films and Sentai Filmworks. This is the Sentai Filmworks edition that I'm watching. It was originally aired from October 1st, 1972 to September 29th, 1974, with a runtime of, it says 30 minutes per episode. It's probably closer to 22, maybe, but it's a 30-minute show per episode. And what it's about, the series centers around 5 young superhero ninja employed by Kazaburo Nambu of the fictitious International Science Organization, or ISO, to oppose an international intergalactic terrorist organization of technologically advanced villains known as Galactor, who are trying to control the Earth's natural resources such as water, oil, sugar, and uranium. The leader of Galactor is an androgynous masked antagonist named Bird Katse, who was later revealed to be a shape-shifting mutant acting on the orders of an alien superior known as Leader X. Galactor tends to create mecha monsters that are animal-based, that they use to attack the world. Now, that's Galactor in GATCHAMAN. In Battle of the Planets, they're known as Spectre. Now, why they changed it from Galactor to Spectre, I'm not exactly sure. I've tried to find some information on that, couldn't. I'm surprised that Ian Fleming's estate didn't go after them, since Spectre was the evil for James Bond, but yeah, it is what it is. Anyway, most of the characters in the team are in their late teens, except for Jinpei, also known as Kiop in the Battle of the Planets version, who is about 10 or 11 years old. The characters include Ken Washio, who is a team leader and tactical expert, Joe Asakura, his second-in-command marksman and weapons expert, June, the team's electronics and demolitions expert, Jinpei, who is the youngest and a reconnaissance expert and an adopted brother of Yoon, and Ryu Nakanishi, who is also known as Tiny, the ship's pilot. And Yoon is known as Princess in Battle of the Planets, and Ken is known as Mark, and Joe is known as Jason. The main characters wear team clothing with t-shirts numbered to mark their rank in the team, or caped bird-like battle uniforms. The Science Ninja Team is often aided by a squadron of combat pilots led by the enigmatic Red Impulse, who is later revealed as Ken's father. The Gatchaman team employs a unique and effective martial art developed by Dr. Nambu, drawing on their ability to perform feats similar to their avian namesakes, such as high-speed running and flight, high jumping, and silent attacks. This fighting system, also known as Science Ninja Technique, is mentioned in the Japanese lyrics of the Gatchaman theme. I couldn't really play the Gatchaman theme. I was lucky to even use what I did use for the Battle of the Planets theme there at the beginning, because I don't want to have a copyright infringement strike. So, the team members use signature weapons and mecha-style vehicles, each with a mundane disguised form. To change modes, each member is equipped with a rich wrist device that, in addition to communications and tracking of the characters, enables a change when the proper gesture and voice commands are given. In the Battle of the Planets version, the command is transmute, which I preferred much more than the one in the Gatchaman original, which is bird go. Just never really liked bird go. Transmute just sounds much better. But that's the way it is. All right. Again, we'll go a little bit further about each one of the characters here. Their vehicles are docked in the team's main vehicle, known as the God Phoenix, or just the Phoenix in Battle of the Planets, which I prefer the name Phoenix alone instead of God Phoenix. That has nothing to do with religion or anything. Although I do know that's why they took the God Phoenix out of it, for the name God out of it for Battle of the Planets, because they didn't want any religious people having a hissy. I just never really saw the point of calling it the God Phoenix. The Phoenix is sufficient. Anyway, it's a supersonic plane, really a spaceship, as far as I'm concerned, capable of underwater travel and spaceflight. The God Phoenix is armed with bird missiles, which are fired from a rack mounted atop the center section. It's really not atop the center section per se. It's connected in conjunction with Joe's car, which is atop the front of the bird's of the ship's nose. There's like a connection between the two, that maybe the missiles come up from a little bit further back atop, but it's really from the car. Anyway, the plane can also transform temporarily into a massive bird of flame, like the legendary Phoenix, to escape danger or to attack, although this process endangers the team because of the extreme pressure in the passenger cabin, and it consumes a great deal of fuel. The team members, again, Ken the Eagle, G1, also known as Mark in Battle of the Planets. Ken Washio, a pilot, is the leader of the Science Ninja Team. Gatchaman is his designation as a team leader. So he is Gatchaman, technically. Ken's father disappeared during a flight and became Red Impulse, but he doesn't know that initially. He thinks his father just disappeared and doesn't know anything about it. He does not know his father at all, and he was raised by Dr. Nambu. Joe the Condor, aka Jason, or G2. Joe Asakura is an Italian of Japanese descent. In other words, one of his parents is Japanese and one of his parents is Italian, and that's how they met. Anyway, a race car driver. He is the second in command, a sub-leader of the team. He was born George Asakura, son of Giuseppe Asakura and his wife Katerina, who were members of Galactor, who were killed by Galactor with a rose bomb when they tried to escape the organization. Dr. Nambu rescued the boy, named him Joe to hide him from Galactor, and raised him as his own son. June the Swan, which is her, when I say these names, Joe the Condor, June the Swan, Ken the Eagle, that's the birds are their, what their uniforms are developed after. She's known as Princess, or G3, Princess in the Battle of the Planets. June is an American of Japanese descent, raised in an orphanage. Her last name is never disclosed in the show. In her free time, she enjoys riding her motorcycle and runs a snack bar called the Snack Bar J. Jinpei the Swallow, also known as Kiop, is or G5. He is not G4. He's the youngest and least in command there. Jinpei was also an orphan who grew up with June, and they are basically adopted daughter, sister type thing. And, brother, sister, his last name is also not disclosed in the show either, and he lives with June at the snack bar above, in the apartment above the snack bar. Ryu the Owl, also known as Tiny, he's G4. Ryo Nakanishi, who is a fisherman's son, is the manager of a yacht harbor and the main pilot of the god Phoenix, or Phoenix. He is the only person in the team who has a family. He has parents and a younger brother. Now, in the Battle of the Planets version, this team is also overseen by a robot named 7 Zark 7 and his dog 1 Rover 1, who watch them from their underwater base as they go out into space and battle, because instead of most of these fights taking on place on Earth, where Galactor is this international terrorist organization, Spectre is an alien invasion type force, and so they go into space a lot more often. Now, there are numerous recurring themes in the show where the teams are fighting to protect the environment as the ISO tries to find solutions to global warming, too much oil pollution, other types of issues environmental involved. This element was not really presented as much in Battle of the Planets, where Galactor was changed to Spectre, and they were considered an alien force trying to conquer Earth instead of eco-terrorists. So, let's go ahead and get into the actual episodes. Episode 1 is called Gatchaman versus the Turtle King. And keep in mind, Gatchaman is done differently than Battle of the Planets. Battle of the Planets was cut and remastered to tell the stories differently, because, again, these are ninjas. They actually do get in fights, and they do kill members of Galactor left and right, more or less. And, of course, to keep the violence out, they had to cut all that and change other elements of the stories. So they only did like 85 of the 105, and then they cut and rearranged. So this is Gatchaman, not Battle of the Planets. Again, Episode 1, Gatchaman versus the Turtle King. The plot is a huge turtle-shaped mecha known as the Turtle King attacks a uranium storage facility. The International Science Organization, or ISO, and the delegates of various countries are very concerned about this situation, of course. Dr. Nambu, the only person who previously knew of Galactor, now officially announces the existence of both this criminal organization and the Science Ninja Team that has been formed to defeat it. The Science Ninja Team then receives Nambu's orders, unites in the Phoenix, and I'm going to just go to Phoenix instead of saying the God Phoenix, because I just don't, even though I type it out, I just don't like it. I'm just going to say the Phoenix. And flies off right away to a missile launching base where the mecha was sighted. Ken stops Joe, who's eager to get into his first real fight. Ken takes Jun along when they sneak inside the mecha. With Ken's help, the Phoenix then enters the mecha, and Joe, Jinpei, and Ryu join the battle against the Galactor forces, and their henchmen, more or less. Elsewhere, the commander of the mecha tells Burger Katse, the second command of Galactor, that the Science Ninja Team exists and that they're here. He then relays the message to Sosei X, who is a supernatural being who leads the criminal organization, which is the alien force that is actually running Galactor. But anyway, In accordance with Sosei-X's instructions, Kasei orders the Science Ninja Team, of course, to be destroyed, which is to have the mecha take a suicidal plunge, taking the Phoenix and them with it, thus burying the Science Ninja Team or blowing them up upon impact when they hit the water. But at the very last moment, the Phoenix escapes the mecha by using the Firebird effect, melting the enemy ship and getting free. Now, I haven't seen Gatchaman in ages, and again, then I saw it as Battle of the Planets, which again is not the same story. But I did find this episode to be better than the Battle of the Planets versions in some ways, than not as good in others. I do, as I've said, really prefer the transmute versus the bird go call. And I also started wondering why in the Battle of the Planets version they named the character Keop number one, and why did they make him talk the way he did? Which was real type nonsense. You really couldn't understand anything Keop was saying in the show, and I hated that, and I hated the character as a result. It was rumored, however, that Jinpei swore too much, so they made him talk that weird way in Battle of the Planets. But he didn't seem to swear at all in this episode. He does, however, get into more cussing in later episodes. Like I said, I never liked Keop in Battle of the Planets for that very reason, and I wonder if I had seen it this way as a kid, if I would have liked the character more. Because while he's still annoying as heck, and I'll get into that, he's more relatable so far in this scene, at least in this episode. Story-wise, it was a pretty straightforward episode, nothing spectacular. It's just there. I give it a 3 out of 5. Episode 2, the monstrous aircraft carrier appears. The plot: a spaceship disappears along with a device that can report and record the location of all of Earth's resources. The Science Ninja Team receives Nambu's instructions and heads toward the bottom of the sea in the vicinity of the spot where the contact with the spaceship, which was really not a spaceship, it's the the part of your shuttlecraft that returns to Earth that they used to do back in the 70s before they had shuttles like Enterprise. The capsules, the return capsule, that's what was lost. Anyway, there they go underwater some shrimp-sized bulldozers that have left a huge aircraft carrier located on the sea bottom to build a uranium factory. Ken stops for you, who wants to fire a bird missile, and this is a recurring theme early on. They always want to fire bird missiles, but they're supposedly not allowed to. They have to ask for permission from Nambu because they're so dangerous, supposedly, and so explosive that they cause massive problems. So, last resort type thing. So, they stop, they don't fire the bird missile, and instead they sneak into the aircraft carrier, or Ken does alone. Again, this is a recurring theme, and it does get annoying rather quickly because that was hard. I don't remember that ever being an issue in Battle of the Planets. But anyway, Ken discovers the spaceship's capsule inside the aircraft carrier, but the astronauts who were on board have been taken hostage. Ken attempts to rescue him. However, when he gets to him, he realizes that they've actually already been murdered. They were just propped up as hostages, and it was a trap. Then Jinpei appears because he sneaks into the aircraft carrier, and he's able to rescue Ken as he is being led underground. The two of them collect the device and escape, destroying the computer in the aircraft carrier. The commander of the carrier gets blamed by Kasei for failure of the operation, and he gets into the head of the Turtle King to hurl himself. The commander of the carrier gets into the head of the Turtle King to hurl himself at the God Phoenix, or the Phoenix. Because of Ken's quick thinking, however, the Phoenix becomes the Firebird, and the flames of the Firebird consume everything. Generally a solid episode. Jinpei seems really competent in this, which is something they never seem to represent in Battle of the Planets. A 3 out of 5 stars again. I'm here. Episode 3, the giant mummy that summons storms. This is a really good episode. Deadly crashes involving passenger planes keep occurring around airports. Ken, who's investigating these occurrences, encounters a boy named Makoto, who's awaiting the return of his father, who's reporting missing in one of the accidents. Makoto's father, however, is the younger brother of Dr. Takahara, who is the inventor of a new element called uraneless. Uraneless. There we go. Yeah, pretty good. It's P-less. Anyway, it is found in the string that the string of plane crashes that they were caused by Galactor, who was intent on getting this element, since it is capable of neutralizing the means of propulsion of their giant mummy mecha. Now, the other thing is that's why they went after this particular plane with Makoto's father, because they were going to either use him as bait or do something else, which is what they end up doing, is something else, because, well, frankly, Makoto's father is dead. Ken encounters the mummy in his Cessna plane before, and because of that incident, he has data concerning the propulsion system of the mummy. He contacts Dr. Takahara to get the element from him. I'm just going to say the element, so we're not having weird dialogue here. He meets Makoto's father, who miraculously survives the crash. Only it isn't Makoto's father. It's actually Burgu Katse in disguise. And Ken kind of figured that out, but they end up fighting at the house, and Katse escapes. Unfortunately, Makoto witnesses this, and well, there's a problem here. But anyway, he escapes. Now, Makoto, of course, blames Ken for chasing his father off, not realizing that his father is actually Katse. He wants to believe his father's alive, obviously. And, Ken realizes this. He understands, because he's still looking for his father as an adult. He's been looking for his father all his life. And, he relates. So he's telling the uncle, Dr. Takahara, don't worry about it. It's cool. I'll see what I can do to get your father back, type thing. Even though he suspects his father's dead. So they go to the airport, where they face off against the mummy mecha, who is destroying everything, and Burgu Katse is trying to get to Galactor's escape. Off against the mummy mecha. Sorry. There we go. I had a signal thing going on that wasn't right. All right, there we go. So anyway, the giant mummy appears at the airport, and Ken is able to defeat it by firing the element into it. But Makoto watches Katse, still in the guise of his father, flee in an escape rocket. Makoto then accuses Ken of breaking his promise to bring his father back. Dr. Takahara tries to explain to his nephew that the person that he thinks is his father was a fake, but Ken waves him off and accepts Makoto's hate silently, since, of course, he lost his own father, 10 or more years ago in a similar way, and has had the same thoughts, namely that his father will return someday. So it's about accepting and being responsible, and it's an interesting, well done scene. Well, I thought the Makoto character was very annoyingly written in the way he behaves. The story was really well written overall, and I thought that the way they handled the Makoto-Ken relationship was great. I give it a 4 out of 5 stars. Episode 4 is Revenge on the Iron Beast Mecha Dagon. During the investigation of an incident, Ken visits the Institute for Earthquake Research. Because of an earthquake caused by the Mecha Dagon, he falls along with the director of the Institute, Nakahara, into a crevice inside the Earth. Now, Ken transmutes into his bird suit and is saved, but he can't rescue Nakahara, who was killed when the ground caves back in upon them. They do eventually get the guy out of the ground and everything, and now they're standing at the director's grave, and he's trying, he's thinking, sad thoughts that he couldn't save him, sorry, type thing, guilt, And he is attacked by Naomi Nakahara, who is the director's daughter, who firmly believes that he's a member of Galactor. Ken understands her anger at not being able to avenge her father and decides to let her know about his true identity as a member of the Ninja Science Team. Consequently, he does let her join them on the mission to try and find out what they can about what's causing the earthquakes. During this investigation, it's determined that the resources the mecha will most likely attack next, and the Phoenix encounters the mecha at a base. Inside, Ken wants to let Naomi avenge her father and ask Dr. Nambu for permission to fire the bird missiles, but Nambu won't give permission. So Ken ignores him and tells Naomi to fire the bird missiles anyway. Naomi hesitates to press the firing button, and he takes her hand and makes her fire the missiles, destroying the mecha and exacting revenge for the death of Naomi's father. End of the mission. The situation is ended and you're saved, but obviously Ken has done some questionable things here. At the director's grave, the whole team meets again, and Ken hands his bracelet to Nambu. He says he wants to take responsibility for making Naomi press the firing button without permission, and accept that he broke orders and that he probably doesn't deserve to be on the team anymore. However, Nambu says that's not how he feels. That's Ken's still welcome to be a member of the team and still be a leader of the team, and the only promise is not to reveal their true identities. What did I think of this episode? Well, it was a little bit too similar to the one just before it with Makoto, where both of the fathers of civilians were killed, and this made Ken or Mark seem a little bit out of character. But it was one of the better written episodes of the series, and he does take responsibility for his own actions at the end, so at least he knows when he oversteps his authority. He's trying to, it's not that bad an episode in that regard. It's just a sign of his hot-headedness, and this will come up time and time again throughout the series. I'd rather, because it's similar to the Makoto, I have to kind of give it a 4 as well. But if I gave it a 3.5, it wouldn't be like I was hurting it. Episode 5, The Ghost Fleet from Hell. The plot is ocean-going ships from the ISO keep disappearing. It always happens in the vicinity of a place called the Cemetery of the Sea. So Dr. Anderson and Dr. Nambu asked the Science Ninja Team to go to a base on the ocean floor that is most likely to get attacked next. The Science Ninja Team gets Nambu's message and takes the Phoenix towards the base at the bottom of the sea. Then the team encounters a mysterious submarine, which leads them to the Cemetery of the Sea, where they see countless sunken ships. But when Joe says that all the ships are actually battleships, Ken gets suspicious and has the Phoenix surface. There's fog everywhere on the surface, and from the middle of the fog, a ghost fleet attacks the team, and they guess correctly that the fog is man-made. The team destroys the device that's creating the fog, but the ghost fleet appear countless discs that can shoot laser beam and other type of rays. And they are completely outnumbered, and they're about to fight a hard battle. But they're simply outnumbered. When their missiles run out, because they kept using every missile they had, they ran out of missiles. They're pretty much out. They don't have enough energy to turn the Firebird, and even if they did, they wouldn't have enough to go take out all of the ships that they're against. 3 red planes appear out of nowhere and shoot down enemy machines using superior flying techniques. The commander of the flyer plane introduces himself to the baffled Science Ninja Team as Redo Imparosu, also known as Red Impulse in English, and then he flies away, leaving the words, "We'll meet again," behind. And that's pretty much how the episode ends, with that kind of mysterious ending. It's a well-written episode. It's very well paced. It did its job in creating tension in the sense the team may well be done for. It may seem like, as it's a cartoon and they're heroes, they'll live. After all, they could have been just gone Firebird mode and charged through the enemy anyway, but I'm giving you the reason why they didn't. They didn't say it, but that's why they didn't do it. But the save by Red Impulse and his team of pilots creates more intrigue and interest to keep watching the show. Rating 4 out of 5 stars. Episode 6, The Great Mini Robot Operation. The plot: gold bars are stolen from the vault of the World Bank. It is a deed of Galactor's mini robots. The Science Ninja Team gets its instructions from Nambu and starts a search on the islands in the vicinity of the place where the gold bars seem to have been taken. Joe makes sure that Ken, June, and Jinpei in civilian wear attract the enemy's attention and get taken off to the base. He proposes that if this is their headquarters, it should be destroyed right away. However, Nambu stops him by saying it's not the Science Ninja Team's duty to attack, but to run a reconnaissance and report. So Joe leaves a board Ryu behind in the Phoenix on the bottom of the sea and sneaks into the base himself in order to repair retaking of the gold bars. While Ken and the others create a lot of confusion in the interior of the base, Joe is searching for the gold bars. He learns that a missile is about to be fired at the Phoenix when it is detected by surveillance cameras by Galactor. He contacts Ryu on the Phoenix, who's supposed to be on standby, but he's taking a nap. Although he's just bored. He fell asleep. And finally he gets him to wake up and realize he's about to get hit. So he manages to get the Phoenix out of the way and evades the missile by a hair's breadth. With Joe's guidance, they then store the golden bars in the Phoenix's interior, and Ken and the others are contacted and escape from the base, and Galactor destroys the base and all of its inhabitants because of the missing gold bars. It's a fairly average episode. There's enough action to say the team is in legitimate peril, but nothing that they couldn't get out of on their own, and of course they do. It's a 3 out of 5 episode. Episode 7 is Galactor's Giant Air Show. Plot: there's a new kind of plane that does not pollute the environment. In the middle of Ken's test flight of this plane, he's attacked by a biplane piloted by a man who introduces himself as Katsun Burugu, who lashes his whip at the ISO plane, and this whip is so strong it actually does major damage to the new plane. It causes the plane to crash, and Ken escapes by deploying a parachute. Dr. Nambu suspects that from the name of Katsun that Galactor is involved and orders the Phoenix to attack immediately, but the ship's tail fin is damaged by the whip. That's how powerful this guy's energy whip is. It can actually damage the Phoenix. Analysis of the material stuck in the hull of the Phoenix reveals that this is a new kind of metal called Whisker, and it was something that was researched by the ISO, but they couldn't figure out how to manufacture it. Nambu was taken aback at the scientific power and knowledge of Galactor, that they can do this, and this is a major problem, because if they can mass produce this, they won't be able to stop them. So when the production factory is discovered, he gives the Science Ninja Team the order to destroy the factory. When the Science Ninja Team conducts a search with the Phoenix in a mining area, it detects a huge mine. And that's when the team discovers that this is where Galactor's secret factory of the Whisker element is being held, and they sneak into it. By the end of the battle, they have succeeded in destroying the computer and a nuclear reactor that will destroy all the Whisker. And they try to get away from in the Phoenix, but they're caught by a strong magnetic attraction of the mine. They have to switch over to jet propulsion instead of Phoenix mode or whatever. They just manage to narrowly escape and leave the exploding factory behind. Again, this is an okay episode, but it feels mostly like just a filler episode. There wasn't a whole lot of progress of characterization or plot in this. It's an okay episode. It's enjoyable for what it is, but if this had not existed, it wouldn't hurt the storyline. Episode 8, Secret of the Crest and Coral Reef. This is a cool episode in a way, but it's also a dull and predicting story. Dr. Nambu orders the team to protect an underwater base. It's going to be the new underwater base of operations. Jinpei, who is bothered after being told that he's basically an astronaut and not an afterthought on the team and not popular at all by other kids his age as members of the Gatchaman team, he decides that he needs to show that he's actually cool. So he takes Galactor on his own. He sneaks off in his jet tank. And he's underwater, and he's going all over the place looking for him. He doesn't realize that the Galactor is actually following him around. So when he finds him, finds the hidden underwater base that they're supposed to be protecting, Galactor then destroys it, and he feels completely devastated. And he's like, "Oh my God, what have I done?" But they managed to. Galactor escapes after they destroyed the base. It turns out, however, that it's a decoy base, and Nambu's like laughing about it. Haha, we got them. And of course, Jinpei's all like, "What?" So no. That base doesn't mean nothing. That was just a decoy. Follow these coordinates. They go to these coordinates and they find their actual new real base is located somewhere else. And they meet their Nambu at the new base. It's rather dull and predictable. I kind of knew that they weren't going to let the base be destroyed. So when they did, I said, well, it has to be a decoy. Of course it was. So there wasn't much to say about it. It's a 2.5 star in terms of the story. It just, it is what it is, but it does do a good job of showing the insecurities of Jinpei and some of the other characters in terms of wanting to be accepted. Episode 9, Devil from the Moon. In a deep black sky, the blue-white moon is shining. Suddenly, a meteorite falls down to Earth. According to analysis, this meteorite has the same composition as the moon. So Ken proposes approaching the moon in the Phoenix to investigate. Approaching the moon, the Phoenix encounters a swarm of meteorites heading for Earth. Ken discovers a wrapped-up body in the middle of the swarm. Because it's not a meteorite, he attacks it, but bird missiles have no effect. The body falls to Earth, becomes a scorpion-shaped mecha, and attacks an oil refinery. Following Nambu's instructions from Earth to find the source of the radio waves steering the mecha and the meteorites, Ken asked June to trace the signal they detected while the mecha was on its way to Earth. They find the carrier sending out the control signal and leave Ryu behind in the Phoenix while they sneak inside the mecha. The other members question the commander, but he won't reveal anything. Joe loses his patience and carelessly fires into the control panels with a machine gun. Shortly after, the ninja team escapes, and the meteorites hit the carrier because the computer was destroyed. And the meteorites kill the mecha. Meanwhile, on Earth, the Red Impulse squads report that the now unguided Scorpion mecha has also been destroyed. This is a weaker episode, as drilling up the moon and sending meteorites at Earth seems like a ridiculously expensive and foolish thing for Galactor to try. I just wasn't really into this episode. It was one of those that, we could have done without it. It didn't really show any real forward momentum for any of the characterization or anything. So it's a 2 out of 5. Episode 10, the Great Underground Monster War. Plot. Suddenly, a whole city has lost power. Ken, in his Cessna plane, is thinking about an anomaly in the power plant when he gets the message from Dr. Nambu that the nuclear power plant has been attacked by an enormous group of ants. The Science Ninja team goes to the site in question, but since firing missiles would have no effect whatsoever on a bunch of ants, the team decides to wash them away by breaking a nearby dam with a missile and using the force of the water to wash them away. Not exactly the best idea. I mean, it makes sense, but, what is that water dam for? What is it? Just, I don't know. It wasn't something I would have approved of. Anyway, upon analyzing an ant that is left behind, the team brings it back to the base. They learn that it's actually a precisely manufactured robot and not an ant at all because it's actually an ant about the size of fitting in both your hands. So it's not really ants, it's these mechanical things that look like ants. So Dr. Nambu repairs the ant robot, and then following its control signal, they follow it as it returns to base in the Phoenix, and then while he's flying overhead in the Phoenix in the sky, while the other four follow it on the ground. They soon discover these huge ant hills out in the desert and end up in a huge ant cave where they try to sneak inside. Katsei is waiting for them, however, and they fall, and they are captured in a dome made of reinforced plexiglass. And they're trying to demonstrate that there's no escape. And their air is about to run out, and they don't know what they're going to do. They're going to die. But Jinpei figures out that he can use one of his bolo bombs to blow a hole through the bottom of the glass near the floor. Frankly, that's not something I would have recommended in the close quarters, but whatever. They do it. They escape. In the meantime, swarms of ants have now attacked the streets, but the Red Impulse Squad exterminates them with flamethrowers. This time, Katsei sets loose a huge ant-shaped mecha to take off. Red Impulse and the Phoenix drive the ant mecha into an underwater tunnel and collects sunlight with a mirror built into the Phoenix's nose. The Phoenix burns everything with a strong heat ray and destroys the ant mecha, and Katsei escapes. I didn't agree with the way the characters escaped the trap. I figured the blast would kill them. That kind of an explosion that close. And since June is the demolitions expert, I would have thought she would have come up with the idea instead of Jinpei. And I actually would have expected them to try the floor that they were under, because the floor was not the plexiglass. I think they should have just been able to escape to the floor. They didn't show any attempt of doing so, so I was a little bit annoyed with that whole situation there. It is what it is. Overall, 3 out of 5. Next episode, The Mysterious Red Impulse. While flying, Ken is surprised to encounter the plane of the Red Impulse commander. Ken pursues him, but Red Impulse gets away using some superb flying techniques, and Ken longs to be able to match him. The Science Ninja Team then gets an order to guard the super powerful plane, the Blue Hawk, which is the pride of the country, Toratin. But the crew of the plane has been killed before takeoff and are replaced with Galactor henchmen. Nambu learns of this situation after the plane is taken off. He mobilizes Red Impulse in order to protect the Science Ninja Team from the Blue Hawk, since the Blue Hawk is technically more powerful than the Phoenix. The Phoenix continues to accompany the Blue Hawk without knowing the situation on board, which I don't know why. Should have been very easy to, hey, get out of there. But Red Impulse appears, and they attack the Blue Hawk, and after shooting a time bomb into it, they disappear again. Ken sees this and firmly believes that Red Impulse is now actually an enemy of them, and he gets in his plane, the F-1 jet, and dispatches from the Phoenix and takes off. Ignoring Nambu's orders to stop, because Nambu actually told Red Impulse to show up, he pursues the Red Impulse alone in his G1 jet. While Ken is away, the other 4 members get abducted, and they're taken to a base located in a volcano. Ken, however, follows Red Impulse, who in turn is following the signal emitted by a time bomb that he set on the Blue Hawk. They arrive together, and after a short hand-to-hand combat, Ken realizes his mistake, and they team up to rescue the others just before they're executed. Nambu tells them that Red Impulse is a friend, battling on their side. The G1 and the Red Impulse plane fly through the sky wing to wing, reminiscent of how bird parents fly with their children. We see a tear appearing in the eye of the Red Impulse commander's eye, and that's because Red Impulse is actually Ken's father, and Ken doesn't know it. What the Raven thought. Well, this is another one of those episodes where Ken acts out of character to serve the plot. Normally even-tempered and following his orders with little question here, he flies off the handle and goes after Red Impulse. Ironically, I did not remember Red Impulse being Ken's father in Battle of the Planets, but it has been over 30 years since I saw the Battle of the Planets version. So maybe I could be just not remembering, or it wasn't there, who knows. But it sure seemed obvious to me that was the connection even before this episode. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm older and I make connections of things like this ahead of time. But yeah, it was pretty obvious. Overall, though, this is one of the better earlier episodes. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. Episode 12, The Gluttonous Monster, Ibucron. Galactor has built a mecha that either consumes or destroys all sugar plants in the world, which will adversely affect the food supply chain in the world. The Science Ninja Team follow the mecha to its secret base, but get drawn toward the mecha with its strong magnetic forces, and it uses it to suck them in the raw materials that it turns into sugar factories. Ken uses his force, however, to sneak into the interior of the mecha along with Joe and Ryu. However, the interior, now here, this is great. He takes Joe and Ryu. Ryu almost never gets to lead the God Phoenix, so it's like, this is actually cool that he gets to do something, sort of. Anyway, the interior turns out to be this giant sugar factory, and the team members get sucked into the production process. They almost fall into a huge cooking pot filled with seething raw material, but they manage to escape barely. And then once they're escaped that, they enter a giant centrifuge where they are basically rendered completely helpless as the centrifuge just spins them round and round. The mecha has arrived at the base in a snow mountain, or what appears to be a snow mountain, and June and Jinpei sneak into the nuclear energy chamber of the base. They turn off the power source, but in turn they get caught by the enemy. However, as the power gets turned off, Ken and the others can escape the centrifuge and rescue them. Just before escaping, the base, however, June installs a time bomb, which sets off an avalanche of what they think is snow, but is actually sugar. That's how much sugar they had made. This whole mountain of snow was actually a mountain of sugar. The Phoenix is going to be covered in the sugar, and that would completely destroy them. The innards of the mechanical elements of the plane. So they switch over to Firebird mode and burn their way through the avalanche to escape. Later, they redistribute a small amount of recovered sugar to local kids in the park because the sugar sweets are what was important, apparently. What do I think of this episode? I actually think that Galactor's plan is pretty damn clever. It would completely decimate the human population to take out sugar plants and beets and other natural resources of sugar, because it would wreck our bodies, as we do need to have some sugar metabolized as food and energy. I just wish that the story had explained this better instead of simplifying it to, oh no, they took all the candy and cake. What are we going to do? The kids are starving. I just wish they had done a little more scientifically truthful element to that, because that would have made it more important, I guess, to me. That's just me, though, I guess. But anyway, it's a 4 out of 5 star episode. Episode 13 is The Mysterious Red Sand, an ISO constructed storage lake, which is in part of a plan to make the desert fertile, disappears mysteriously. The Science Ninja Team flies to Africa to investigate. An elder there tells them that there's a legend of the moving red sand. It is said that the red sand burns forever, and it can make civilizations grow as well as destroy them. Ken asks the elder about the sand secret, but the elder won't tell him anything. Jinpei, following the elder out of their meeting, sees him get abducted by Galactor, and the elder deliberately snaps the pendant he's wearing off of his neck and leaves it behind for Jinpei to find. Jinpei brings it to Ken, and they break the pendant, and the red sand is contained inside the pendant, which it's sent to Dr. Nambu, and the analysis reveals that it's actually a new sort of bacteria, or an old sort of bacteria that they didn't know of before, and is a previously undiscovered powerful energy source. It has 1,000 times the force of uranium, and if water is added, it splits up and causes a big explosion. Not cool. Because Galactor is now looking for the red sand, a lion ant mecha changes the lake's location via an underground channel. In other words, what they do is they open the ground underneath the lake, drains through the hole, goes through an underground channel, and then reappears elsewhere where they want it to. So the Phoenix dives deep underground, discovers the caves that are being used by the mecha, and sneaks into the base. And that's the way it is. As usual, there's always some sort of underground base by Galactor. But Galactor learns of their arrival, and they shoot the Elder before he can reveal the secret of the red sand. They head to the location where the red sand is locked up, one step ahead of the Science Ninja Team. Before dying, the Elder has told the Science Ninja Team the location of where the red sand is and what, but they arrive too late. The red sand has already been stolen by the mecha. As a last resort, the Phoenix turns towards the mecha and becomes the fiery Phoenix. As the red sand is touched by the flames, Galactor's highest ambitions are burned together with the sand, and everything explodes, and the Phoenix comes out of the explosion. It's a fairly decent episode. It keeps pretty consistent with the storylines. It's just there. It's a 3.5, I guess. Like I said, it's kind of, the same kind of general plot. None of the characters act out of sorts here, which is good. It's just, generally reasonably executed episode. The Fearsome Ice Gander, episode 14, is being reported that all kinds of nuclear subs, cruise ships, submarines, battleships, etc., are disappearing in the ocean. We already had this kind of thing going on before, but, again, we're repeating ourselves here in the show. These disappearances are the result of the Galactor mecha Ice Gander, who's aiming to siphon off their nuclear energy for itself. While investigating these incidents, the Science Ninja Team gets a message that a suspicious iceberg is moving forward against the current of the sea. The Phoenix follows this iceberg going to the North Pole, where they discover a base in the middle of the icebergs. Ken and June sneak onto the base. In the base, they find out they're going to try to take out a nuclear reactor. An operation is performed, or rather, not an operation is performed, where they find that medical room where an operation is going to be performed, designed to convert the crew and passengers of the ships that they've captured into zombified Galactor members, basically. With this strategy, Galactor wants to gain nuclear energy and new members of their henchmen at the same time. Katse is about to perform this mind-altering operation on a small girl when a passenger, who is a passenger on one of the cruise ships, who was introduced a little bit earlier in the episode. Ken and June invade the room and stop the operation, but Katse locks them inside the room and leaves a time bomb in the room to blow them all up. However, in this instance, the old man that was kind of befriending the little girl, he swipes the time bomb in his arms, and he goes to the door and sacrifices himself, saving the others from the explosion while also opening the locked door to get them to escape. Now, the old man in the wheelchair was pretty much supposedly near his death anyway, so it didn't matter to him. He just wanted the girl to be safe, so he's just doing this, the noble sacrifice thing. Ken and the others exit the operation room. First, they free the abducted passengers and let them get back on board their ships, and then they blow up the base and escape. The Ice Gander pursues them, but the Phoenix encounters it using their Firebird form, and the mecha goes down in flames, or up in flames. The passengers saved, the little girl is headed home to her mother, awaiting at their destination, with only the old man's pipe as something for the girl to remember from his sacrifice. I don't like it. when they tell stories of little kids clearly under the age of 10 going on planes or ships or without some kind of adult supervision with them. It just seldom rings true in my mind. Yes, it does happen, or at least it did in the 1970s when this was made. Who knows what the protocols are in today's post-terrorism world. But I didn't care for that. I thought that she should have had a nanny or somebody with her, and maybe that person could have died and then the old man took her underwing or whatever, but something. I just didn't like her being on her own. I also kind of wished we would have gotten to see what the procedure was going to be and what it would have done, just because Galactor potentially having sleeper agents in the society would be a really cool threat for them to have to deal with later on in the series. But they prevented it. And I guess you kind of have to, because it's kind of a gory idea to have drills in the people's heads and stuff. But whatever. Rating is 3 out of 5. Episode 15, The Fearsome Jellyfish Lens. Ghost City was destroyed 10 years earlier by environmental pollution. Communication with the investigation team sending data from there is lost. So the Science Ninja Team is assigned to go there in the Phoenix, which uses a soft skin membrane to protect it against the pollution. But as soon as they enter the city, they find out that Galactor has a base there, and Galactor attacks. Nambu then orders the UN military forces to attack. It seems everything is cleared after the attack, but in reality, a jellyfish lens created by SOSI-X continues to grow at the bottom of the sea near the city. It uses the polluted sea water as its amniotic fluid. After finishing its growth, the jellyfish lens then turns sunlight into an energy a few hundred times stronger than sun energy and completely destroys fighter planes from the UN forces. It then starts to go around the oceans and start attacking cities all over the earth. The Phoenix dives into the sea near the city and discovers the base and hiding jellyfish lens. They attack the missiles, but even though they destroy the base, the jellyfish lens flies out of the sea pursuing the Phoenix. The membrane that protects the Phoenix gets peeled off, and that puts it in a difficult situation because they really can't do anything with it. Just then, the Red Impulse group shows up, and in order to dissipate the poisonous gas that the jellyfish lens breathes out, they should throw high-pressure oxygen at it. Protected by Red Impulse, Ken flies the fiery Phoenix into the jellyfish lens, just as they use high-pressure oxygen, and it goes up in flames, and the jellyfish burns to ashes on the surface of the sea. This is one of the more scary, more dangerous mecha in the series so far. It's a good episode overall. I liked the science that was used in it. Everything made fairly decent scientific sense for a cartoon. I'm sure that if you actually broke it down, it doesn't make sense, but for stuff that's for kids, it's fine. For that era and what's going on, it's fine. That's a good episode. 4 out of 5 stars. Episode 16 is the indestructible machine Mechanica. The latest ISO weapons factory is taken over by Galactor and manufactures Mechanica, or Mechanica, rather. I don't know why. I said Mechanica because I misspelled it. That's why. Okay. It's a machine which, according to the plan on a microfilm, can change its form constantly. The Science Ninja Team follows Mechanica, but when they lose sight of it, they continue to search individually and come up empty-handed before meeting at Dr. Nambu's home. While searching a tunnel where they have lost sight of Mechanica, Jinpei discovers a base through a hole in the surface and sneaks into it. While trying to destroy the base, he finds a microcassette. Judging from the behavior of the Galactic members, this cassette seemed to be very important, so Jinpei takes it with him while fleeing. It contains the plans needed to change the form of Mechanica. Nambu makes a plan based on this cassette and instructs the Science Ninja Team how to install this plan into the Mechanica mecha monster. As Mechanica transforms, there's a chink in between the different parts of the casing. Ken sneaks in through one of these chinks and wants to insert Nambu's cassette into the computer, but he gets into a melee with Katse, who is in the pilot's seat. Ken dives under Katse's arm and somehow manages to insert the cassette, and as a result, Mechanica transforms into a giant fair. When Katse realizes what's happened, he escapes. It's not the best episode. It's certainly not the best resolution. I could have skipped this. It's one of those episodes that really doesn't do much for anything. It's cute to watch as far as things go. I do like that Jinpei was able to do something on his own and show that he's competent on his own. That's about one of the really the only saving grace of this episode. So I give it 2 out of 5. Episode 17, The Grand Insect Operation. This is similar to the Ants. Agent X or Sosai X, intending to, and using the strong destructive tendencies of humans, especially children, releases Kabutoran in the city. It destroys things by using children's brainwaves. The children are happy when they find these big stag beetles in one of the open areas in town, something that rarely happens. Jinpei finds one of these bugs and brings it home himself. That night, each one of the children's stag's beetles grow large enough to be 8 or 10 foot tall, and they pull the sleeping children inside their bodies and wrap them up, fly out of the homes and start destroying the city with the kids kind of using their nightmares or their fear as energy to charge the attack. While flying, Ken discovers how Kabutoran attacks a nuclear plant. Because Jinpei is missing, the Phoenix cannot take off. Now, I have never really understood this. The Phoenix can fly just fine without them. It just can't, it flew without putting him in there before, so I don't understand why it couldn't take off. But, basically what they were saying is with Jinpei missing, they can't have his extra firepower from his ship in there. But it just didn't really care for that. Anyway, Ken transmutes into his G1 plane from his Cessna plane, and he uses X-rays on Kabutoran because he sees a child in the interior. He ceases his attack, and he informs the members of the Science Ninja Team to shadow the mecha and discover a base hidden in an ancient ruin. In the interior of the base, the operation intending to remove the children's brains and install them into Kabutoran is about to begin. Jinpei has been captured, of course, and a drill is just about to touch his head, and he's saved by a hair's breadth by Ken and June. This is basically the same procedure that they were going to do to the little girl in the sugar episode, but I wish they'd just go a little bit further. They save the other children with Joe's help. Ken and the others get to the Phoenix. Bombed by Red Impulse, the mecha blows up together with the base. I'm glad they kind of returned to the idea because it played off the operation. Like I said, Wakatsu was going to operate on the little girl. It is well written. It's a scary episode in the sense that, try to imagine yourself being consumed by this giant beetle and being, and having your mind controlled and stuff. It's kind of a weird, freaky episode. It is one of the best episodes in the early season. I give it 4 out of 5. I'd even give it a 4.5 out of 5. Episode 18, Revenge, the Whale Operation. A huge whale keeps attacking harbors. While investigating a group of whales, the Science Ninja Team discovers a huge whale heading for this group. The huge whales fire a rocket aiming for the Phoenix and flees, pushing aside the other whales. In reality, this is not a whale, it's a Galactor submarine camouflaged as a whale. The heroes want to follow this submarine, but in order to save a young whale under attack by orcas, Jinpei and the G4 flies away. During all of this, the submarine gets away. Nambu chews them out and reproves them because of their squeamishness of not letting they chews out Jinpei for not letting the baby whale just get eaten, more or less, because that's what they do. orcas attack whales and meat. But anyway, for those who don't know what an orca is, think Shamu. It's the killer whale. There you go. Anyway, they put a transmitter on the small whale so he can help search for the whale submarine. As such, the small whale goes to the Arctic Circle, and the Phoenix follows it. In order to search for the base, Ken and Joe leave the Phoenix and encounter two men, introduce themselves as forest keepers. There's no forest up in the Arctic, but they are attacked from behind. Ken gets baffled, but Joe had already figured it out and shoots them and kills them. He says this is a Galactor trick, and this is exactly how his own parents got murdered by Galactor, more or less. They would have killed them and then exploded them. The Science Ninja Team then discovers the base and sneaks into it. They learn that a group of submarines, the giant group of these whale submarines, is about to leave and attack the harbors all over the world. So they install explosives on all the submarines and in the base. But in order to help the little whale who ended up in the base, Jinpei is like, I'm not leaving him. We're not going to let him die. We're not going to let him die. I saved him from the orcas. I'm not going to let him die. And they're like, dummy, we're all going to die if you don't let him go. So Jinpei just dives into the sea with the whale. And of course, they can't stop the explosions from their bombs. So they have no choice. They have to leave him behind and get back in the Phoenix and escape. After the explosion of the base and the submarines, they think Jinpei is dead, but in reality, the whale takes him to the surface underwater, and he gets out. And of course, he's frozen from the water and everything, but he's alive. And he contacts him by his wristwatch and says, hey, I'm here, and everybody's relieved. My response is, darn it, Jinpei, you were supposed to die. I swear that little cusser gets himself in so many bad spots trying to prove himself. It's ridiculous. And when he does prove himself without trying to, he's cool. But when he tries so hard, he just gets himself into too much trouble. And yes, I know he wasn't going to die, but it would have been cooler if they had, in a way, because then they would have had to find a new member to replace him. And I think that would have been much cooler as a result to see the process of what it takes to become a member of the Ninja Team. Anyway, 3 out of 5 stars. Okay. Episode 19, Speed Race from Hell, the plot. The Ruman Kingdom is known as the Gambling Kingdom. It's kind of like going to Saudi Arabia or something like that. Galactor, guaranteeing the king's position in exchange for all of the realm's money, is channeling riches out of the country. His Highness Prince Luga's heart is torn by the people who are basically losing everything with the high taxes imposed upon them by his father. So he contacts the ISO and offers to hand them over a microphone containing the location of all Galactor bases and headquarters to them. He does this knowing that it's against his father's orders, and that he's putting himself and his father at risk. In order to lay their hands on the film, the Science Ninja Team has to take part in a race sponsored by the Prince in which everybody can participate. But Galactor has figured out the plans of the Prince, and so they've put Galactor people into the race as well, and they set up obstacles. They're lured and so the team, along with the Prince, are lured into a secret base located in the interior of the kingdom as they play games. And it's interesting, well done scenes as far as the car race goes and everything, but it's not as good as I'd hoped it would be. But it's good. Anyway, Katse wants to force them into exchanging the film against the life of the king, but the Prince has already handed over the film to Ken. So Katse gets angry and just shoots the king dead. Katse attempts to take the film back by force, and they have been switching back and forth between who had the actual film, and Jinpei pretended to swallow it, so they figured Jinpei's the one they had to get, so they grab Jinpei and they're going to operate on him and cut open his intestines to get to the film, which, frankly, if he did swallow it, what would it matter? Because the digestive juices would have destroyed the microfilm anyway. So it's kind of a silly thing to do. But after the insulting brawl, Joe has Katse cornered and is about to take his mask off, but Katse gets away again by stabbing Joe in the wrist, and he flees. Despite that they have saved the prince's life and saved the kingdom, the film was burned and destroyed. Now, what I kind of liked was that Joe wasn't racing his actual race car, the F2 car. He was, but he wasn't. He was in his normalized version instead of the Ninja Team car version, because they all changed different forms. But I would have liked to have seen more with that in the actual F2 car, because Joe's my favorite of the group. I like the costume coloring code better, and I always liked the car. I don't know why, but I just did as a kid. So that's one of my things that the show really lacks is the scenes of Joe and June in their respective vehicles, and those are my two favorites are Joe and June, or Jason and Princess if you were. Anyway, this is a 4 out of 5. And finally, for tonight, episode 20, critical moment for the Science Ninja Team. The Galactor Mole Mecha appears. The Science Ninja Team is contacted and starts to meet, but on the way to their meet, Joe wants to save a small dog that's laying beside its mother who was killed in the attack. It doesn't really make sense why he does it, but he does. He goes and tries to rescue this puppy, and the mecha's like right on top of him, and it shoots a rocket, and he saves the puppy, but he suffers the rocket attack, and the mecha starts attacking the Phoenix as well. But since it gets weak out in the sun, it has to withdraw at dawn. Now, it turns out that Joe is now unconscious. He's got a giant head wound injury because shrapnel from the explosion from the missile rocket went through his skull and into his head. So it's in a very dangerous area of the brain. It's impossible to do an operation, but for some reason they can do high-speed centrifuge, and maybe the thing will, instead of pressurizing and pushing it further in and killing him, maybe if we do it at the right enough speed, it'll go flying out. Okay, whatever. Anyway, they try this. It fails. Yeah, no kidding. Should have killed him, but it doesn't. Then a message arrives saying that the mecha has appeared again. The other 4 members are mobilized, but their thoughts remain with Joe. Because the G2 car cannot meet up with them, the Phoenix is not at its full strength and cannot use its normal abilities. They cannot go to Firebird effect. They can't fire the bird missiles. They're basically just a sitting duck. Just, a little flying gnat flying around the mecha. Kind of dumb. But anyway, at the last possible moment, Joe appears in the G2. He's driving it. He's really out of it. He doesn't know what he's doing. He hasn't transformed the car or anything to speak of. He's just driving along. I'll get there. But he's driving well enough that they can make him pick him up and put him into the nose and be the full Phoenix now. But as soon as they are the full Phoenix and they're thinking they can do something, the ship gets caught in the mecha's hand and starts to get crushed by the mecha. Unfortunately, they don't have enough strength yet. They haven't, for whatever reasons. Um, and they're like, well, what do we do? What do we do? We can't go to Phoenix form. We can't we can't go to Firebird form. We can't do anything. What are we going to do? And Joe kind of crawls from his half out of it position and fires a bird missile into the mole mecha's neck, which blows up the mole mecha. Unfortunately, the Phoenix is caught up in the resulting shockwave and gets thrown away, rotating heavily, kind of like the centrifuge. And with Rio's steering capabilities, they recover, but this resulting jolt gets the fragment out of Joe's head somehow, inexplicably, and he escapes. Everyone escapes and everyone lives. This is one of my least favorite episodes because of the head injury stuff. It doesn't make any sense. And really, even if Joe, seeing the dog, somehow triggers a connection to his own parents' deaths, it just seems way too foolish to do what he does to get himself in that predicament in the first place. It seems like something Jinpei would have done, but not something Joe would have done. Joe's just too serious and too adult for that. It was interesting to see him do it, but I don't know. It just seemed really out of character. Mm-hmm. So I gave this one a 2 out of 5, and that's the first 20 episodes. And so overall for this version, this episode of Quoth the Raven, part 1 of Gatchaman, it's a 3.5 out of 5. Overall, I'm enjoying the program, but it is interesting because I don't remember a lot of this stuff from Battle of the Planets. I'm trying to figure out how they cut and pasted and did what they did. But a lot of other things that are missing is when they had the battles between the ninja team and the Galactor henchmen. There's a lot of blood and guts and stuff that not really blood and guts, but just blood that comes out once in a while from the Galactors. Because like June usually has her little yo-yo thing that she uses. Well, in Gatchaman, it's like a throwing star in a way. And it has a ring, the yo-yo effect, but it stabs into people's necks and sticks there and kills them through the jugular and pull it out and stuff. So little things like that are kind of cool to me. And I guess because America was thinking that's too violent for our kids, we can't have that. So that was taken away in the American version. And so in a lot of ways, when you think about the Battle of the Planets versions and you think about what the characters could and couldn't do with their weapons, the only one who seemed to have a real weapon was Joe Jason with the gun. And even he doesn't use the gun as a gun most of the time, even in Gatchaman. He uses he uses the gun, he'll flip it around and use the trigger handle as a grappling hook. Or he'll put a drill at the end of the nozzle of the gun and use it as a drill bit. He's not really usually shooting people with it. So it's kind of interesting, some of the things that come about with that show in that respect. Okay, so next week, I'll be back with another 20 episodes, I guess, 21 through 40. Hopefully I didn't bore you for too long. I wish I had somebody else to share this with and talk about it with on the show. But unfortunately, John wasn't around. He's busy doing theater stuff for the next month or so, and that's kind of why we're doing it this way. But if other people who have watched Gatchaman want to come on the show and talk with me about it, I'd love to have you on. So get a hold of me on the address you see on the screen, quotheravenlbr72@gmail.com. And let me know what you think about Gatchaman. And get back to me. Maybe we'll bring you on the air. Alrighty. In the meantime, next week is part 2. We'll be back May 28th, 8 p.m. Eastern. And If you enjoyed this episode or you think others might, I'd really appreciate it if you'd hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons to continue to get content from my channel. As always, I thank you for watching and for your support. If you want to reach out to me, I'm on Facebook at lewis.brightraven, at Twitter at lewisbrightrave2. You can see some of my artwork at deviantart.com/brightraven. You've been watching Quoth the Raven, Lewis Brightraven, exclusively on YouTube. Again, reach out to me if you like this episode, or you have thoughts on Gotchaman, or you have a request for illustration. Maybe you have Gotchaman. Quoth the Raven, lbr72@gmail.com is the address to reach out to me at. If I don't get back to you within a day or two, try lewisbrightraven@yahoo.com. That's all for now. We'll see you next time. Have a great night.